I've been reading a ton of light novels, but which ones are worth reading? Join me and find out. Hello and welcome back to the channel. If you love light novels, well, this is the place to be. And if you're new, well, every month I talk about what light novels I have read and recommend them to you guys. I tend to read a lot of varied light novels and a lot of stuff that is a little bit outside of the box, thanks to the fact that Yen Press are very kind enough to send me a bunch of review copies. The first title we're going to talk about is a spin-off to The Reign of 7 Spellblades. Side of Fire. Now, I talked about this one at length, and this is a side story prequel revolving around Godfrey. Now, if you haven't checked out Reign of 7 Spellblades, I do recommend it. It is an absolutely fantastic light novel in its own regard, and I'm going to see it because I know it annoys people. It's a bit like Harry Potter. Not really. It's a more darker version with the whole magic school and what have you. I just call it Harry Potter because I like this more than Harry Potter, and you can have this as a good substitute. Now, this is a prequel side story revolving around Godfrey, one of the allies in the main story. Now, he is a little bit older and he is, well, he's discovered to be quite useless. His power is not particularly great. And yeah, this is his coming of age story with a bunch of other characters who do turn up in the main plot. Now, this is essentially kind of just a side story, like I keep saying. So this is Godfrey and a bunch of other characters that appear in the main plot, but it's kind of like them being the hall monitors, doing the dirty work. Now, the story about Kimberly, the Hogwarts kind of place is, well, it's a bit darker. The hallways are very dangerous and a lot of the students end up pretty much attacking each other. Not to mention the teachers are absolutely dangerous. So having hall monitors that are trying to keep the peace, trying to keep things safer for the younger generation is a good idea, and it does come across quite well. Now, with it being a side story, you can completely skip this and be none the wiser. I did feel like there was very little kind of new content that was absolutely a must read, but it was nice to get a little bit of light on some of the minor characters around the main series. Whether or not it all becomes important later on, I don't know. But hey, if you like Reign of 7 Spellblades, it's probably worth picking up. They usually are. The next story we're going to talk about is Kusunoki's Garden of Gods. Now, this is one that I really enjoyed, and if you want something different, this is something that needs to be on your list. In fact, I am starting to notice that we are getting a nice trend of releases that are completely different from, you know, either your isekai, your villainess, or your high school love romance things, you know, the usual stuff. And Garden of Gods is this one. Now, this revolves around a young man named Kusunoki, and he inherits a very strange inn. And when I say inn, think of Love Hina, you know, the old style ryokan inns that Japan is known for. Up in the mountains. Up in the mountains. Now, this is important because, well, he can see some of the strange things that's going on. And yes, when I say strange things, he can see the gods. Now, this is your very much Japanese gods thing, which most people are probably not going to be aware of. And honestly, this is a very good one. Now, if you want a slice of life that gives you information about the Japanese gods, this is for you. Because once he opens an inn, Kusunoki is very often greeted by multiple gods. For example, we have the god of the mountain, who looks very much like a certain wolf deity, has their children. We have I can't know if it's a turtle or a tortoise that loves alcohol. We have Fujin and Raijin. We have multiple different ones, and it's very comfy. If you want to see a bunch of gods and a guy chilling in a back garden, drinking alcohol and eating sweets, this is the series for you. I never thought it was something that I wanted until I got this one, and honestly, it is a fantastic read. If you want something out of the box, something completely different, do try this one because it was a lot of fun. And I'm going to be honest, this one's going to go under the radar. It is a very fun title. Do please check it out. The next title is one that I have spoke about, and that is In My Seventh Life I Met a Monster Princess. Now I did do a full video on this one, so go check that one out at the end of this if you are a little bit interested. This is about a guy who, for whatever reason, gets killed and is reborn multiple times. He is used by his family to their own ends and decides on his seventh life that he is going to, well, not do that. He's going to be a little bit different and take revenge on all of the times that his family have pretty much got him killed. And so he decides to meet with this girl. Now this girl is pretty much known as a vampire. There's loads of rumours that she goes around and pretty much kills off like potential suitors and stuff like that. And he discovers her and discovers that, yes, it is true. She is, however, it is love at first sight and he and her fall madly in love. It's a cute story of romance, but it's also got a revenge plot thrown in, which, if I'm honest, the series does struggle a little bit with kind of balancing it, and it does become very apparent that the story kind of gets cut short. We don't know if there's any more of this. There's not a volume 1 on the side of the spine or the cover or anything like that, and the author just does say kind of, oh, if we see each other again at the end, but it does end in a pretty okay spot. It just kind of leaves you wanting more. If you want a nice cute romance with a little bit of a revenge plot and is pretty much a popcorn light novel that doesn't take much taxing or anything like that, this is one that you might want to check out. Now, we've talked about two very comfy and easy ones. Now let's talk about something that honestly was quite difficult. This is Festival of Heresies. Now, it's not really treated as a light novel, it's more of a novel, but it's done by Yen Press, so you know, kind of, yeah. Now, this one's interesting because this is about a girl who doesn't have any luck whatsoever. She, in the past, has had a difficult upbringing, and she goes and applies for a job. This job has a guy who takes a shine to her, and pretty much it's a cult. It's one of those ones where it's kind of like, it's hard to just talk about. It's a cult. Now, this is a very serious story. It's not really a fun one, but it's a difficult and more of a novel. It's not your typical overpowered protagonist goes and kills everything. It's not your harem stuff. This is a tale of cults and abuse. It's difficult. I think it's a difficult recommend, but it was very good. I really enjoyed my time with it. I just want to be honest and kind of say, this isn't for everyone. If you want a good novel, you want this. If you want something a bit dark, you want this. If you want your protagonist going around stabbing things, being overpowered while, oh, there's a little bit of blood, so it's a dark fantasy, you probably don't want to check this one out. If you want to have the image of being trapped in a room with millions of frogs all croaking throughout the night, this is something for you. Yes, this one actually gave me nightmares. If you want a cult series, yes, this is for you. It's not for the faint of heart. But it's not really a horror, it's just deeply unsettling. We'll talk deeply unsettling. I picked up Volume 3 and Volume 4 of Apparently Disillusioned Adventures Will Save the World. Now, this is one that I covered about 2 years ago, and I liked it. I really liked it. Now, this is about a bunch of adventures where, for whatever reason, they can't trust each other or anybody. So, we have our protagonist where he is dumped by his ex-girlfriend who is basically tricking and conning him, and then is dumped by his party for apparently fiddling the taxes and the money income. We've got the priest who is accused of being sexually assaulting a young girl. falsely accused and is tortured and trapped inside a cell for God knows how long before being excommunicated. We have a young dragoness girl who was trusting of others before being left for dead in a dungeon and having her valuables stolen. And we have a mage who, well, she was a noble and is then kind of accused of committing fraud and kicked out of nobility. So all of these have a little bit of a tragic backstory. So what do? Well, they delve into their vices. So we've got our protagonist who loves idols. That's right, idols. Can't think of anybody else who would love idols. Weird thing, but hey. We have the dragoness who takes a shine to food and becomes a bit of a glutton. We have the priest who drowns his sorrows in alcohol and sleeps with a lot of women. And we have the mage who gets into gambling. And they need to form a party for whatever reason to fuel those vices and slowly, very slowly become better people for it. It is an absolutely fantastic series and is easily one of the gems of light novels these days. I'm going to be honest, we see fantasy titles so many times and this is one that I do feel like kind of gets overlooked. The anime kind of came and went and I didn't really hear many people talking about it. In fact, even when I did the video on this, not many people were that interested, but believe me, if you haven't read this one, check it out. It is a very underrated title that should be on your list. A lot of fantastic fights that are all different to other fights. We have a fight that's about math as well at one point. And we have a lot of very good character building and world building while we're at it. It's a very good series that just isn't getting the love that it deserves. I think as far as I'm concerned, it's finished at 6 or 7 volumes as well. I'm halfway through volume 4, so yeah, not much more to go with that one. But yeah, definitely check this one out. It is one of the jewels of light novels, and I don't say that lightly. Before we get to the final title, I want to know from you guys, what have you been reading and what are you looking to check out in December? Now, we're going to talk about this last series, and this is a series that has a lot of history with me. In fact, it was not only the first light novel I ever read back in the Tokyo Pop days, but it was also the first anime that I ever owned. So I'm really happy that this has actually got a full-on release because it was originally ditched by Tokyo Pop, and that is Full Metal Panic. Now, I am well behind on Full Metal Panic. Every time G-Novel Club release one of these, it's 3 volumes in hardback, and yeah, 3 volumes at once when you have a lot of stuff to review is very difficult to get into. But this is volume 7, 8 and 9 of Full Metal Panic. We have Continue It On My Own, Burning One Man Force and Gathering Make My Day. Now, if you guys are aware of the anime, this takes place after the third season. So in the anime, we had the first season, which did the first 3 volumes. We had the second series, which was the comedy one, which is based on the short stories. Yep, I'm like 3 or 4 volumes behind on that. And we had the second read, which was kind of like volumes 4 and 5 of the light novel. We skipped volume 6, which was contained in the previous hardback volume. And now we have these 3 ones, which I believe was when they brought Full Metal Panic back about 7 or 8 years ago, that was kind of like what was in here. So yeah, it is a great series. It's an absolutely fantastic series. And you know what? It's weird. Now, I love light novels, but reading stuff like this or Slayers or something that's a little bit older compared to what you get today is a completely different experience. Now, this is about a young man who has to protect a young girl. We've got mechs, which honestly you don't see in light novels, but it starts off as a comedy and ends up being a very serious wartime skirmish kind of title. and it's very interesting. Now, if you want mechs fighting, you're gonna want this. If you just kind of want, you know, overpowered characters, you're not gonna have fun time here. But this continues the series. It is one of the best series of all time, and I'm going to recommend it. From what I understand, it is quite difficult to get these hardbacks now, at least the first one. So if you do see it and are interested in picking it up, do not hesitate. Pick it up. One of the best series of all time. I want to do a full-on video on this because this is near and dear to my heart. An absolutely important series for me and, well, the channel. I wouldn't have gotten into light novels without this one. So that's what I've been reading. What have you been reading? Let me know in the comments, and if you like this, remember to like and subscribe.